Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the kickoff webinar for the spring semester, brought to you by the Division of Information Technology. Today we have Rob Maxwell. He is the Senior Security Engineer for the Security and Policy Division within the Division of Information Technology. So he's going to be talking to us today about privacy and social networking. So welcome, Rob. Take it away.
As soon as I find my buttons, I will here. Hi there, how are you? Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming out. I'm going to give what you can see here on the first slide here, what I call the oxymoron talk. Of course, social networking and social media are very popular in the community these days. It's a great way to connect with students, and people want to use those sorts of opportunities more and more. But privacy is also a serious concern. And working with these social networks in an effort to maintain your privacy is both important and complex and a little difficult. So we're going to talk about some of the things that you can do here today to make sure that you're only sharing the things that you want to share, as well as protecting the things that you would rather not be shared. So we're going to move on here a little bit. Looking right now for my next slide. Thank you. All right, so this is me, and I put this up at the front because realistically, we're going to cover as much as we can today, and please ask questions as we go along. I don't have a lot of slides. We're going to do a lot of hands-on stuff, and I'm going to demonstrate some of these features for you. But I am a senior security engineer. I work in the security group, security policy group of IT here at the university. I am R. Maxwell at umd.edu. If you have any questions in the future about anything related to these topics, feel free to contact me. The other person I'll throw under the bus for this, who is more on the soft side of the things, I'm more of a technical person. Amy Kinther is also an excellent resource here in the NEFIX office for some more people-oriented issues around social networking, social media and stuff. So let's see. So can I get the next slide? Okay. So social networking and social media. When we talk about these things, let me be clear. We're talking about using services like Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and many others that have popped up, either large, small, for a variety of different purposes. Some of them are geared towards sharing information with friends and family. Some of them are a little more enigmatic in exactly what they're designed to do. Most of them are trying to build some sort of community around their service and their product. You have LinkedIn, which tends to be more of a professional nature, job-related, work-related type things. You have Google+, which is one of the more recent offerings. It's growing very quickly. Initially, it was very tech-heavy. Now that Google requires everybody who's starting up an Android phone or opening a Gmail account to join, now not so much. But they all have their own conventions, their own sort of community rules, spoken and unspoken, that you're going to have to work around when you're dealing with these things. Now, when you're these can all be used to increase engagement with your students, with followers, friends, family, depending on exactly which way you'd like to use these things. It's also important to recognize that with these, the ability to promote to multiple audiences from the same platform definitely exists. But it becomes a little more challenging given that you then have to create those multiple audiences yourself within your a community. We'll talk about a little bit about that today. Now, we come to the oxymoron part of the talk. These social sites are designed for users to share information with the world. And the idea that you would categorize that as sharing with certain people and not others, that you would share with certain smaller communities or bigger communities, all of those come after the notion of you're sharing things, whether it be pictures or thoughts or documents or whatever information that you're sharing. To differing levels, depending on the service you're talking about, there are privacy protections, there are ways to categorize information and to tailor the information that's available to the individual audiences. Now, there are challenges with that. These tools that are built into these services, they sometimes work just as they're advertised, and sometimes they don't. A good example of that is Facebook, just this week, is in the news, having been taken to task for making it very difficult to remove photographs once they've been uploaded to Facebook. Now, Facebook has an explanation. You could call it an excuse. But basically, once photos are up there, they get stuck in this system that they use that they don't pay a lot of attention to because they are geared towards you sharing the photos. And they're not spending a lot of time working on how to get the photos down. So they say that when you click the button that says remove this photo, their policy says that it could be around for 45 days after you click that button, that's the time frame that you're working with. They say in practice it could linger for as long as 3 months. The fact of the matter is, if you know the link to the photo, there are still photos that have been removed, with air quotes, yet are available 3 years later because they have not been scoured from the back end of the system. So, given that situation, you need to give careful consideration what it is that you're going to post on these services, whether it be for private or public consumption, and give thoughtful consideration up front when you're posting those items to which audience am I addressing this information. All of that said, and with all of the social conventions that have grown up around these various networks, the fact remains that once you place data in a public space like this, whether it be completely public for public consumption or for consumption by a select private group, that data has flown the coop. It is out of your hands. You can never retrieve it. People can do a screen capture of an image in their web browser. They can download the photo. They can save your document with depending on the service, with varying levels of metadata embedded in that document. If you have a Word document, for instance, or an Excel spreadsheet, has a fair amount of metadata relating to your computer and the license that you had, the name that you entered when you registered Word or Excel or whatever. Potentially even editing the changes that are tracked and editing stuff that is still in the metadata of the document. With all of that retrievable under different circumstances and then redistributable. So it's the fact is that a photo that was taken of you that you put out there that you then later thought better of and tried to retrieve, someone may have already downloaded that and may have reshared it someplace else. And there may or may not be legal ramifications for doing that, but you get into a very deep hole trying to chase those sorts of things down. Once it's out there, it's not coming back. If you're lucky, it'll die out. So, to avoid those sorts of situations, you want to give some careful thought to what you're putting up ahead of time. Okay, can we go ahead and go to the next slide there, please, Lauren? Okay, so here are some of the things that we're going to talk about today. The social media privacy controls. We're going to step you through a number of those in sort of a hands-on way so that you can get a feeling for how to use these controls on your own accounts. We're going to talk about some of the best practices for dealing with a few of these services. And we'll talk about a little bit of defensive strategy so that if things go a little pear-shaped on you and things start to get out of hand, you know how to address and mitigate some of the problems that can arise. Okay, go ahead and hop on to the next one there, Lauren. Okay, now don't go clicking on these URLs just yet. We will get to each of these in time. I did want to throw a slide in here though with them all on, so that because so you're not quite concerned about writing them down or clicking on them as we go along. I'm going to try to share my screen here now and see if that works.
If everyone could just bear with us for 1 minute, we're experiencing a little bit of a delay.
All right, are we seeing that now? Okay, so you can all see this first slide here, right? This website is called mypermissions.org. It was a very quick project put together by somebody at the beginning of this year. And it's a very simple web page. This web page provides links to this variety of social services here directly to their permission setting pages. Some of these can be a little tricky. If you go into the front page of Facebook, you can still get to this page, but there's a lot of digging down to be done. So this page is a good one to bookmark. You can see here that it includes, and I'll start up in the upper left-hand corner, Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Yahoo, LinkedIn. This would be Dropbox, Instagram, Flickr, Foursquare, AOL, and the one I'd never heard of until I saw this page, Familio. Now, before we go climbing into these page by page, I want to talk in general about some of the positive steps that you can take to make sure that you are getting your message out in the right way and sort of control your own message. The first thing that I would suggest there is you want to make sure that you're creating positive content about yourself. Now, that seems obvious, but you want to create your own posts that present the story, the message that you want to convey, as well as connecting with things that others are asking you to post. Or you would ask friends, colleagues, whatever, to post things, either links to content you've created, that sort of thing. But you want to be driving your own message rather than sitting back and letting others drive the message. Because if you sit back, one of two things can happen. You have less ability to give positive spin to whatever message you're putting out there. But B, you simply have less control over the direction because you're allowing others to guide that. Now, the second item, and I'm going to real quick here change the website that we're looking at. You want to stake a claim on your name on the internet. Now, this is challenging. My name is Robert Maxwell. If you Google Robert Maxwell from not inside my Google account, you get a lot of information about people I don't know and I'm not related to. I have it's a fairly common collection of names there. Some have more common names than others, but clearly as the internet grows, the chance that you are unique on the internet is smaller and smaller. Now, in my internet lifetime, I took on the pseudonym Lysander many, many years ago. It goes back to college when I needed a name for something, and I came up with this. And it simply persisted because R. Maxwell 4296 was an annoying sort of thing to try to deal with. So I have used that name, and in my particular case, that is relatively unique on the internet. Aside from a minor deity in World of Warcraft, that appears almost nowhere else on the internet. But I got lucky, and that was before most of the world was trying to do the same thing. So this website, though, Namecheck, spelled NAMECHK.com, this provides an opportunity for you to do a little checking of your own. You can see here that I've put my pseudonym in there, and this website will go out and check all of the services listed here and tell you whether or not that particular user ID has been taken on those particular services. So you can see here that on YouTube and eBay, WordPress, and Twitter, Lysander is all taken. Now, I know that those are actually accounts that I own and control, as are almost everything else on there. Now, what is interesting here is that if you have a relatively unique username that you are accustomed to using, and you see that, for instance, I'm looking at Bebo here in the third column, about halfway down. I do not, to my knowledge, have an account with Bebo, so maybe somebody else has grabbed that username there. But it's also possible that I somehow created an account there and have forgotten about it. The vast majority of these here are actually owned by myself. Now, this can help you to identify whether or not the chosen username would be available on multiple platforms. It could be that you would like to have the same user ID or the same identifiable name on multiple platforms. If you're going to use, let's say, Facebook and Twitter and Google+, you might want to come in here and do a check and see if those are going to be available. Now, I will note, though, and this is an interesting hiccup with this particular item, on Facebook, my particular Facebook page is in fact connected to the nickname Lysander. However, here it doesn't demonstrate it because if you query Facebook, I'm listed under Robert Maxwell, not under this name. So, this is a handy tool. If you're planning to launch your social media campaign, you might want to do a little checking here ahead of time to make sure that the particular networks that you're looking at have the name that you want to use. It can become difficult to track down when you have multiple different usernames on different platforms if you're trying to be more publicly available. Now, another item that you may like to acquire would be something using either that username or your real name in a domain name. It's fairly inexpensive these days to register a new domain, whether it be a .com, a .org, a .net, or any of the many top-level country domains that are available through a wide variety of service providers in that area. You can look at GoDaddy, Hover.com. Those are two examples. There are many others out there that for a relatively inexpensive price, and when I say that, I'm talking about $10 to $15 a year, potentially, maybe a little bit more depending on the servicer. And depending on the top-level domain, the .tvs, a few of the other highly prestigious, not prestigious, but the snootier top-level domain names cost a little bit more. They're premiums. The .tv is fairly expensive. So in any event, it can be of value to create something like robertmaxwell.com, or I might create rmaxwell.com or .tv, a location that I control to put the material that I want on the internet. Now, one of the things, if this is your first foray into creating an internet presence for whatever purpose, it is really critical to recognize the fact that the material that you put on Facebook, while they have long since modified their terms and conditions to indicate that you still own the material you put on Facebook, you do not control Facebook. So in the event that Facebook decides you've violated some rule of theirs and they choose to remove your account, if Facebook is your presence on the internet, you're at Facebook's mercy to make sure that you're on the internet. That can be problematic. I say this because, Facebook from time to time changes exactly how they're marketing for companies and individuals to represent themselves as people on the internet. Facebook, if your grandmother is on Facebook so she can see the grandkids' pictures, that's fantastic. And for her purposes, she probably doesn't have to worry about that. But if you're a commercial entity on Facebook, they change their processes frequently enough, the methods for which they're able to contact their fans or subscribers or whatever term they're using this week, because they've changed it a number of times. You're sort of at their mercy. And the changes, as it evolves over time, may or may not be to your liking. I don't mean to single out Facebook. Google Plus has had very similar growing pains just this year. Twitter has similar issues. YouTube has issues. YouTube has fairly strict copyright enforcement rules and a variety of things. If you were trying to put content out there and have a YouTube account, whether you're monetizing it or not, you can potentially lose access to all the material that you would connect to YouTube should they decide, for whatever reason, that you are no longer following their rules and they decide to remove your account. So the idea here, not just to scare you, but to make you aware of the fact that you should really want to be the master of your own domain here. Literally, your own domain name and a place to put your material. This is very common practice. You can get a catchy URL someplace and some very cheap hosting or inexpensive hosting. In fact, at the university, especially if you're an instructor, you can also point a domain name to some university-hosted materials here as well. Those are all very possible. Then you have control over the content, the material that's presented, and you can simply refer back to that material from these other locations. An additional item to think about here in terms of a positive step that you need to take with regard to building a positive online presence and making use of this is to cross-link content between these networks. Cross-linking is simply referring back and forth between the networks to make sure that the content is appropriately represented in all locations. If you are posting material on Facebook, you may want to post a link on Twitter that points at the Facebook post. Similar with, you might post something on Twitter saying, hey, I have this new YouTube video up that's valuable to these individuals, with a link pointing over to YouTube. Now, that said, that you need to exercise some caution here as well, because the formats of postings and the conventions for posting this material are different. Obviously, Twitter has the 140-character limitation on the length of a post, including whatever link you include, whereas Facebook does not. Also, Google Plus does not. One of the problems you will run into here, there are services that will allow you to do multiple updates to multiple services at one time. A good example of that would be Hootsuite, another one of the links that was on our frame before there. I can, using Hootsuite, post the same update to Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn with one click of one button. The shortcoming to that is, of course, twofold. One, that content may not be appropriate for all three of those audiences. I particularly keep different types of professional and personal connections on different social networks. That's what works for me. That said, with the 140 character limit, I sometimes abbreviate, over-abbreviate, and really distill finely a Twitter update, whereas that's not the sort of update I normally put on Facebook. So you need to be cautious in simply repopulating one social network with content from another. It makes more sense to put very specific items that deal directly to the nature of the individual social network. That said, there are also tools that allow a variety of kinds of updates. There are desktop applications and web applications, Hootsuite being an application that you can run either locally on an iPad or your Android phone, or on a desktop client inside a web browser. There are others. Buffer is another application that's very useful. These tools allow things like timed updates, link tracking, things like that. So, for instance, Twitter is obviously a worldwide phenomenon. You may have multiple followers in multiple time zones. Even if you simply have East Coast followers, you may have people that check their Twitter feeds in the morning, or in some that check it in the afternoon or the evening. Specifically with Twitter, Twitter tends to be very much a stream of consciousness sort of thing. It's not the sort of thing that you page back and page back and page back and read up on all of the day's tweets. So I occasionally use Buffer or Hootsuite to post the same tweet maybe 3 or 4 times a day, depending on what part of my audience I'm trying to reach. If I have a particularly interesting tweet, let's say to a link to an article I've written that's online someplace, I might publicize that and have Buffer plug it, put it up onto Twitter, say 4 different times in a day. Simply to make sure that when somebody's getting out of bed in India and that's following me, happens to pull it up over their morning bowl of curry or whatever it is that they're having, they see, oh, okay, I'm going to go click on this link and read this interesting new article. Whereas it's also popping up in the timeline just in time to catch, some of my Brit followers that are up, far before I am in the morning. So it's very valuable to be able to post it. When I throw out a single tweet, that's going to be seen by the people that are looking at Twitter maybe now through maybe the next half hour, 40 minutes, hour. If you use Twitter on a regular basis, you probably follow quite a few people, and you may have a number of people following you. So the stream can get very thick very quickly, and so it makes sense to put it out there more than once. There's always a fine line. You don't want to irritate the people that are actually following you more closely than others. But 3 to 4 times a day, completely reasonable for what I would call a major sort of post, the sort of thing like you published a new article or a new item. Now, that said, Facebook is the sort of thing that you might scroll back and read the last day's worth of status updates for your friends in Facebook. So you don't need to keep reposting to Facebook. I would say LinkedIn is the same. You should also understand, thank you. That's an excellent suggestion, Lauren. Something like Twitter, in this case, would be great as an assignment update for students. You could certainly point them with a link to changes in assignments, but you could also simply tweet 2 or 3 times the day before an assignment is due, a reminder, a simple reminder. Now, I will also say that with Hootsuite and most other Twitter clients, and there are many of them, Twitter provides the ability for you to create your own groups. So let's say you follow 100 people. That's a fairly small-ish number of people to follow these days. You're following 100 people. You may have mentally categorized those people. I personally follow a fair number of people in the security and computer forensics world. I follow some personalities, right, some celebrities of varying sorts. I follow some people that are actually friends and acquaintances of mine, and some other professional relationships that peers and colleagues, various places that I do work. You can create groups for those people so that you can directly address those folks, follow those folks more closely by following individual groups instead of looking at the full-blown feed of everybody that you follow. So that can be very helpful. Now, and I guess I bring that up in connection with the assignment update, that it might be a suggestion that you could make to students that if they're going to follow you specifically related to a class or several instructors, that they create a group like that so that your tweet about an assignment reminder doesn't get lost in Lady Gaga's tweets or whoever. In relation to privacy relating to these items and the idea that you have these client-side applications on your desktop and much more often on your smartphone, these particular devices, and smartphones are the leading executors of this particular functionality, they also do their own cross-linking. So when you are setting up your Facebook account, you're asked for a great deal of information. Very little of which you are required to provide. You have to provide your name and your email address and a password. And I think everything past that is optional. That said, we have seen people that actually put their name and address and phone number and all that sort of nonsense out there. Now, those things may or may not be shared by default. They're not shared by default, I don't believe, these days. But in the past, that's been different. And you might change or not those settings. What I can tell you is if those are publicly available or they are available to your friends, when your friends use the Facebook application on their smartphone to connect to Facebook, and let's say you have a student that you allow to be your friend on Facebook, if that student has your email address in their contact list on their phone, because they frequently send you email from their phone to say, hey, I'm late, or I can't make it to class today, or what was that assignment again? When Facebook connects and it puts the name together, it's going to import all the information it can from Facebook into the student's contact list. So we recently had an instructor who was quite alarmed to find out that the student had his home address and his phone number in his phone. The student hadn't done anything inappropriate with it. He happened to be showing him something on his phone. He saw the information in there, and he was quite concerned and in fact, thought that the information had come from Aries, when in fact, the information had come down from Facebook. When we looked at the professor's Facebook page, he had that information on his profile and publicly available. So unbeknownst to the student, it had populated this in his phone. So it is very important, and one of the reasons we're going to step through some of these things, to know what information you're putting out there and exactly what sorts of privacy controls are on it. Now, in the event that things kind of go pear-shaped on you and you need to think about defensive steps with regard to dealing with potentially bad things that happen on social networking sites, the first thing I want to emphasize as a security practitioner more than anything is that each of these accounts needs to have a username and a password. The username may or may not be unique depending on whether you were able to line them up as I have with mine here. But they need different passwords. Each account should have its own password. You can have a scheme so that you have the same base password and you modify that password a different way for each service. It's critically important not to use the same password in multiple locations, and I'll explain why. With an example that kind of looks bad for me as a security practitioner, but there was a time not very long ago that for a great many sites that were what I would call low-importance sites, places where I had to create a login so that I could leave a comment or so that I could download a product. Nobody that I was doing business with, nobody that had a credit card number or anything like that. It's very general things, small things. I would use the same username and password almost everywhere I went. Well, unfortunately, when I initially set up my Twitter account, I had also used that username and password because Twitter was in its infancy, and I honestly didn't think it would still be around today. Then there was a large breach of confidential password and username information from, I believe it was Wired.com and the associated properties, or the Condé Nast properties. I'm not positive, so don't hold me to that. That was interesting. Many thousands of usernames and passwords had gotten out. And as a security person, I looked at that and I went, oh, that's interesting. Bummer. Glad I don't work there. The next day, when my Twitter account was compromised and started sending out spam tweets, I was a little less sanguine about the whole thing and actually rather put out. I realized what had happened was that I had used that username with a password. and they had thought that somebody had grabbed those usernames and passwords and just started trying to log in places with them. Fortunately, I was able to get my account straightened out very quickly and go back and delete the offending tweets, and everything was fine. But it's a possibility, and given the prevalence of using the same password, the same username over many locations, had I done that with, let's say, a bank account, and the user, the malicious user had tried it and been able to access my bank account, I think I would have been far more angry about the result. Because convincing my bank that that was not me that had logged in with my username and my password and taken all of my money out would have been, well, frustrating, and to say the least. So I want to reemphasize different passwords for every site. There are many ways to do that. There are tools like 1Password. There are add-ons to your browser. You can download them, install them. It will even generate the passwords for you and save them in a central location. When you need to use it, it will enter through the browser your password for you. You just move on. You just have to remember one master password to get into the program itself. That's an option. Again, as I mentioned, if you have a complex password that consists of a base word, let's say monkey with a capital M, and for every website you append the first three letters of the website before monkey and the last three letters after monkey. So your Twitter password would be TWI, capital M monkey, TER. Something like that. Don't use that one, please. But you could use a simple formula that would create a very complex password, but yet still be fairly easy to use. Now, passwords aside, you want to use these privacy settings that we're going to go over in just a minute here fairly aggressively. You want to make sure that you have locked down data and allow the minimum amount of access to the things that you share to still be able to effectively share what you're looking to share with the people with whom you wish to share it. That also plays into the idea that you need to think about what your planned uses for accounts are when you set them up and as you move forward. And be mindful of the people that you allow to friend you, that you friend, that you follow or allow to follow you. You can connect to users in a variety of ways. Facebook has the friend model. Facebook also has the subscribe model, whereby a user can connect to an individual, not as a friend, but as a subscription, so that they see in their newsfeed any status that the subscribee posts publicly. So that would mean, for instance, let's say Bill Cosby is on Facebook. I don't know if he is or not, but let's say. And I subscribe to Bill Cosby. Well, Bill Cosby can continue to have his small group of friends, or large group of friends, whatever it is, that he shares a great many things with, including personal information and things like that. And he may occasionally post public statuses that are designed to be shared with anybody. And I would then, as a subscriber, see only those public things. Now, this might be valuable if you choose to use Facebook in this way to connect with students or other associates in some way. Now, this necessitates you setting the privacy level on every status, setting a default privacy, and then going in and changing that. So if your default is only your friends can see your status updates, and then if you want it to be public, you go in and specifically set it. We'll talk about that default setting in a minute. So with Facebook, the friend situation is also important because your friends, in giving access to certain applications, also effectively give permission to that application to access any information that you have shared with that person. So that's a little bit complicated, but the friend relationship, when you start granting permissions to applications, whether it be a game like Mob Wars or Farmville, or the What Great Philosopher Are You quiz game, or any of the many, many, many silly, stupid things that you can do on Facebook that way, those permissions that your friends grant to those applications can be somewhat transitive, in that if you've shared certain things with that friend, that stuff can then pass on to the application in certain situations. The problem here is, and I'm being a little less precise than I'd like to be because the rules about exactly how that can happen are fuzzy and in constant flux. So what I would suggest there is do not friend people that you don't actually know on Facebook. I would say be friends with folks that you like. If you have a class or a business or an organization or something, create a fan page. That's a page that's not associated with a specific individual, but with a product that people can then follow and get updates from. Or allow people to subscribe to you, and they will be able to see your public, specifically released public items and not all of your personal private stuff. Very similar things go with Twitter. People follow you on Twitter. You can specifically reject them if you choose to. There is an ongoing issue of whether or not you should follow back every person who follows you. That's sort of an ongoing philosophical debate on the internet, and I really don't take a place in that. I don't tend to do it. I follow people that I want to follow, and and I need to communicate with them. Now, that said, a DM, which is to say a direct message, a message that only you, the sender, and the receiver can read, can only happen between people who follow each other. So, if that's an item that you wish to utilize in class, then you will have to follow back. Okay, now, the other thing that you're going to want to think about when you're setting these accounts up, of course, is how do I plan to use this? And, precisely, what are my goals here? If your plan with Facebook is to just connect with real friends and family, then you don't really need to worry an awful lot about that. You're going to share things with people that you would like to share them with, and you're not going to have the subscription model. If you plan to use it for multiple purposes, some of which might be more public, then you need to have that in mind as you go through. Okay, so that said, we're going to go back here to mypermissions.org. Again, this was a site set up that simply points us to the privacy policy. I'm going to be showing you this information on my actual accounts because I tried to set up some dummy accounts and realized that without having actual friends, it really was kind of pointless. When you click on the Facebook setting here, it takes you directly to the application settings. Now, I'll point out that here that each of these applications, I'm going to pop down here a little bit and show you the various applications that I have given permission to access some level of information on my Facebook page. I will pop back up here and click on, for instance, the Mob Wars. I've actually played that game in a very long time. But it tells me here that, first of all, I last logged on to that particular game more than 6 months ago. I think that's the default, longer ago than we can remember. And this application has permission to access my basic information, and by clicking here, I can see exactly what that is, my profile information, my family and relationships, all right, which you can see here. This application now can access information about my significant other and my relationship details and my family members. Now, Facebook now has this option. A number of my family members have said, my brother, I got a little pop-up that said, Glenn Maxwell tells us you're his brother. And I clicked, well, yes, I am. So now Mob Wars can access that information and understands that we're related. That's not the end of the world. But what you need to look at here is that this is a way for them to build a profile of who you are and of your social network. It's very important with Facebook and with many of these other social networks to recognize that Facebook's product is the user. Right? I am Facebook's product, and so are you. And we are being sold to the advertisers who would like this information about us in order to better market to us. The people that think that, and look, Facebook is free insofar as I don't have to pay any money to be on Facebook. It would probably be better if I did, because I might think a little bit more about what's going on here. But they are going to make use of this information to better market to me, to target ads at me, and other things, I'm sure. Now, this is not Facebook doing this. This is whoever makes Mob Wars, which may or may not be Zynga. I can't recall correctly. These tools allow them to access a great many things, and I can go on here, and as you see, if I want to use Mob Wars, I must allow them to access my basic information. That's required. Same with my profile information, my family and relationships. You'll notice, of course, that if you've ever played Mob Wars, the game itself doesn't actually need any of this information. The only thing I can specifically, individually opt out of is this contact information here, and I can say, please remove that access. They don't need to know any of that. Now, that said, I can go in and I can click Remove App, and that will simply remove all of the access that Mob Wars had to my account, and I'm going to do that now. I will say, if you've been on Facebook long enough, you can scroll over this and be very embarrassed about the things that you wasted time clicking on, such as, I don't know, what Princess Bride character are you? I don't know if there's any way for people to access what stuff you have given access to. That might be the most embarrassing piece of information altogether. I'm going to go up here on the left-hand side, and I'm going to click on the general account settings. You can see my name, the username that I have associated with my life under there, my password, and how long ago it's been updated. Now, I'll point out that that's 9 months old, and I should go change that now. I'll do it later. If yours is 9 months ago, you should probably change that too. They should cycle through. You don't have to change it every 30 days, but maybe once a year would be a good idea, because as I illustrated earlier, from time to time, these passwords get compromised, and if you've just taken the time to change them once in a while, you're going to short-circuit a lot of the folks that will just poke around and see what still works. On the left-hand side, I'm going to click on Security. These are some important settings. Secure browsing. You want to make sure that this says secured browsing is currently enabled. What this does is it requires, if you look up here in the URL bar here, you will see that this says HTTPS. That is an encrypted transmission between my web browser and Facebook server. Prior to being able to default Facebook to this, there was an application that was created called FireSheep. It was a very simple plugin for a web browser, Firefox specifically. And if you were on an open network where you could see other people's traffic, which is fairly common in many network settings, certainly a Starbucks or someplace like that, someplace that's open, you could basically grab other people's Facebook credentials and impersonate them on Facebook. The quick and easy solution to this was to simply allow people to require secure browsing on everything. So you want to make sure that's on. There is no downside to that. You will not take your browser longer to render. It probably costs Facebook a few extra dollars a month in their data center energy costs. But in the end, it's definitely something you want. You do not want to make it easier for people to grab your credentials and impersonate you online. Login notifications, the second item here. This particular item, if we edit this, it will notify you when your account is accessed from a computer that you haven't used before. You can click, and they will email you at home. So let's say the great example is you got a new smartphone, and you access with the Facebook app, and you type in your username and you type in your password. Facebook will send you an email that says, hey, by the way, we noticed that you logged in from a device you've never logged in from before, just so you know. There are other applications that will actually make you verify that. Banking applications sometimes will ask you to verify that in some other way. But Facebook here, it's simply informational, and it's to say, look, you need to know that you logged in from a different computer or a different device of some sort. Now, if you did that, that's fine. If you didn't, now you have a notification that somebody might have your credentials, and it might be time to come on here and change your password, at the very least. Now, login approvals provides the functionality I just required. this would actually require you to enter a security code when you use the unrecognized computer or device. Again, a new smartphone, a different computer, you sit down in a lab, you sit down, you're at the grandparents' house and you just want to check Facebook quick, you get on their computer and it's going to say, oh, wait a minute, we haven't seen you come from here before, we need to make sure it's you. Makes them so. Application passwords, you can create passwords to access individual applications within Facebook if that's what you'd like. Again, recognized devices has a list here of devices that you've recognized if in fact you require login approvals. Active sessions is another one. If you suspect that you have been connecting, someone has been connecting to Facebook that is not you, you might look at this and you can see here I have a long list of sessions. These particularly are via my the device, my smartphone. Safari on Linux is how my Android browser, the Facebook app on my Android phone, shows up as Safari on Linux here. If you think that your account has been accessed by someone besides yourself, you can look at this and you can say, oh, I was not on Facebook at that time. Again, remember that it includes any access to Facebook at any time, including from your smartphone, and bear that in mind. Okay, we're going to go up here, and we're going to step over to Twitter. And the Twitter can, I'm going to have to go ahead and sign in here. That's it. I'm going to sign in. All right. Now, if you look at Twitter here, I have given access to several applications to access my Twitter feed. This list here indicates exactly what types of access are given. Specifically here you will see backup aside here, backup, can read, write, and access my direct messages. Hootsuite can read, write, and access my direct messages. Instagram, however, can only read and write. There are quite a few applications here. Read and write is common. Be aware of applications that you give Twitter write access to. Many applications will say, hey, just, give us your Twitter credentials. We'll connect you to your account with us. Use that to log you in and you'll be fine. But you'll also find that those applications start posting things that some individuals will say look spammy in your Twitter feed. That can be, you want to tightly control that. Obviously, any client that you're using to send a tweet, like in this case, Buffer and Reader, the Twitter client, Zeit, all of those have I can tweet directly from those applications, so they need write access. What I try to avoid are the applications that want to tweet on their own behalf in my stream. Now, again, you can cover the account information here. It's fairly simple. If you scroll down to tweet privacy, you have an option to protect your tweets, which is to say it only allows people that you have approved as followers to read your tweets. All right. They are not then available publicly. If you tweet in general on Twitter, it is publicly available. People can follow you, and you do not need to approve followers. You can, especially if you have protected your tweets. You must. However, public tweets, they go out into the air as a broadcast over the wire, and you are publicly putting them out there. By clicking this Protect My Tweets, you could create a small group, and in this case, you might want multiple Twitter personalities, usernames, for individual classes or something like that, so that you could more directly control who can see which groups of tweets. All right. You can also see that media-wise, you can control, they'll try to filter for sensitive content if you're interested in that. Again, in terms of mobile, you have mobile notifications, and this is where you can control those things. I'm going to scroll on over here and look at a couple more of these very quickly. Google Plus is, it's actually the wrong Google account. I'm going to go ahead and sign in here. All right. And now it's going to show you my profile here. Allow me to change the password. Allow multiple sign-ins, which is to say sign in from more than one location. That could include my Android phone. That could include multiple browsers on one machine. It can allow me to authorize applications and sites to access. And there's also a two-step verification, which would allow me to use not only my password, but an additional item to help verify myself if I, in fact, wanted to do that. Has a number of connected accounts, services that I use. Google uses, let me see here, I'm going to go to Google Plus. And then it says who can send you notifications and who can comment on your public posts. You can allow anyone to publish. You can, you know what, let me back up just a minute here. I'm gonna back up real quick. For those of you who are not familiar with Google Plus, it is sort of designed to be the best of Facebook and Twitter. I'm going to go to my stream rather than looking at my stuff here. And what you can see is that an individual will post and you can make comments and you can do a number of interesting things. But when people follow you or you choose to follow people, you can place those people in what are called circles. This particular circle here, for instance, has 5 members in it. These are people that I have added, that I have followed, or that I've added through my Gmail account, or it'll import a number of contact formats. And these particular people, all you have to do to be able to grab these and drag them in here, you grab one, and you grab it and just drag it right into a circle like that. Now he's a member of that circle. Now, what does that mean for you practically? If I have circles, and I say I'm going to, demonstrating my abysmal typing skills here, I'm going to share this. Do I want to share it publicly? Well, let's say I don't. I can click the X and public is gone. Now I'm going to add circles that I do want to share it with. Let me say I'm going to share this with my family. And maybe you can see that I have quite a few circles set up. Circles can overlap. I have a number of people who are in a variety of different circles, but the circles are very finely determined. You can see there's a course that I'm teaching this spring, an independent study course. I have all the class members and the other instructors in this circle, so if I share something with those people specifically, it goes right into there. And the rest of the world cannot see that. They can comment on it. We can share information about that, and it all comes right through there. And again, I have quite a few different circles set up. It can be as fine-grained as you'd like it to be, or as I said, you can also simply post it publicly. So that gives a very, and then you again just click share. You'll notice too in that family group I have a couple of people who aren't even on Google Plus yet, so I could also email them that particular contact. I'm not going to do that, but I hit share, and there it is. You can also control the view here based on circles. In this stream right here that we're looking at, I'm seeing everything. Over here on the left, I could say, show me just the people who are my friends on here. Now, this little pop-up here, I can, using this button here, increase the amount of things from this circle that show up in the mainstream, or decrease. Maybe I have a higher sensitivity to family or friend stuff, and I want to see fewer acquaintances. I can simply dial it up or dial it down. All right, so there's Google Plus. So when I go back here to my account page, who can send me notifications? Well, people in my extended circles. That would basically be people, that would be a second degree circle. If somebody is in a circle of someone who is in one of my circles, then they could send me a notification. Who can comment on my posts? Well, I have it set to anyone, but you could hone that down to say only my circles or my extended circles, that sort of thing. Who can start a messenger conversation, which is to say the built-in Google Instant Messenger piece that's built in here. You can also set who's allowed to start those. Emails, notifications, those are additional things. I'm going to go back here to Facebook real quick and circle around a little bit on this. We talked about earlier posts, and we are going to go to, you see here on the left, these are some basic security settings. Down here, you can also visit privacy settings, and I think this is important. I apologize for having skipped this. Default privacy. Who do you want to be able to see your posts specifically in the beginning here? If you just type in a status and hit return, who gets to see it? In this case, I have a custom setup, but you could set it that my friends can, or that they can be public, or by default, they can be something else. We can talk about how you connect with the people that you know. Timeline is the new way Facebook is going to show your posts. Timeline is going to show everything you've ever put on there. It will show pictures and status updates and a variety of other information going back through time as they're tagged in your profile. And this defines who's allowed to look up your timeline information, either by name or by contact information. Pop that back up. Also, who can send you friend requests, who can send you a Facebook message, who can post on your timeline, and let's see here, who can see posts by other people on your timeline. So somebody sees your timeline, makes a comment about your baby picture that you happen to put up there, who can see that kind of information? How tags work, apps and websites, a lot of this. This is another important one. Limit the audience for past posts. So if you use this tool, right, the content on this timeline, if the timeline goes back and has everything you've ever posted, you can change that by limiting the access that people have to old posts. Now, this might be useful because you just don't want stuff lingering forever, and it might be useful because maybe there's some stuff that you'd like to dispose of, but it isn't there. It's, I think, especially useful if you're a college student and you like everybody not to see what happened in high school, or if you're a graduating college student and you kind of want to forget about college. You can also, as it says here, individually change the audience of each of your posts. But that requires going to that specific post that you want to change and choosing a different audience. Now, I heard a statistic earlier this week that in general, on average, women post to Facebook an average of 11 times a month, and men tend, I believe it was 9 times a month. They were, for some reason, illustrating the gender disparity there. But if you have been posting to Facebook 11 times a month, your average, and that's an average across 800 million people, so there are probably people that have posted a lot more than that. But if you've been on for Facebook for a year, then you have 132 posts, and it's going to be time-consuming to go back and specifically remove access post by post if that's what you wanted to do. So it might make sense to simply limit past post visibility. Again, limit the audience to past posts across. Again, with this tool here, you can also block specific users. You can block invitations from applications. If you have somebody who just keeps inviting you to play, I don't know, Texas Hold'em poker, and you just don't want to see that in, you can block that here, and it'll just block app invitation from that user, not that user altogether. You can block users altogether up here. The app invitations, event invitations, and you can simply block apps. You see, I have blocked Mafia Wars because it just wouldn't go away. So those are some very useful privacy settings inside of Facebook. Now, we've talked about a number of these. LinkedIn is more of a professional type service. It's funny, I see people that connect via LinkedIn. They post statuses. I don't get that completely. I don't follow it in that way. It's a good professional networking tool. in the strictest, most classic sense of networking. But here you can control which applications and external websites can access your LinkedIn information. This is used a lot by businesses to do business. I see job offers through here. I see job announcements through here. I see people talking about business-related items here. There's not a lot. I don't know that this would be explicitly useful for classroom scenarios, but maybe some other scenarios on campus. So, again, I just want to cover Foursquare here is a bit of a pet peeve of mine. Foursquare is specifically designed to announce to the world where you are right now. You can manage your permissions and your accessibility inside there, but you need to understand that the fundamental goal of Foursquare is to announce where you are right now to the world. So bear that in mind, and you can certainly crawl through those application permissions as well. Yahoo has a similar set of permissions. I wanted to cover a couple other things real quick here as we're winding up, kind of getting past our time a little bit. Just a couple of quick items. One of them is the employee database here. If you go to, and actually I'm going to go back and get in from the beginning. If you're a staff member, I am certain you have seen this website before, timesheet.umd.edu. This is where you fill out your payroll. I'm not familiar whether the faculty actually use this or not, but certainly your personal data information is stored here. Now, I am already logged in, so I'm going to click on Display Update Personal Data. You're required to log in with your directory login, and you can see that it was successful. The white boxes represent information that I can edit. Now, if we skip down here quickly to the bottom, where other information is, you can see, for instance, I had moved offices recently. I'm going to correct my office number. Right here are optional bits of information: a cell phone number, a pager number, and a fax. It also says, do you want this published in a public directory? Now, I have not published those in public directories. You can also see other information. If you wish to change this information, you go here and you change it. And you can come down here and click Update. That is the only place that the place where you're going to control that sort of information. I don't know what the error was. I'll have to come back to this, but in this particular case, this is where you're going to handle controlling that flow of information from the university. Now, one last thing that goes very much to the idea that you don't control this information. There is a service that I recommend. There may be others that do similar things. This is called Backupify, a name I blame on the fact that we're running out of names for stuff. When you go to Backupify, it's basically an application that will permit you to back up all of the social media stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. Basic backing up is free. I now have to remember precisely which email address I'm logged in with. I'm going to try that one. That didn't work. I apologize for that. Okay. Let's see. All right. Well, I'm going to punt on that one for now, but let me go back here and explain. Let's see. Specifically, Backupify, you log in, and what you're going to do is provide it, for instance, your Google Plus account, your Facebook account, Twitter, and a number of other accounts that it will back up. and it will back up those accounts for you, either for a small fee or for free, up to a certain storage limit. Now, here's something you need to understand. Facebook is keeping, for the sake of the timeline they're creating, your posts, your status messages, your photos, as far back as it can. Twitter, however, does not. In fact, unless you have a professional account with Twitter or are using some other source, you can only go back, I think it's about 250 tweets of your own tweets to recover those. So if something happens to your account and you want to recover more of those tweets, you need to have an application like this running and archiving them someplace. This is a great online tool. You can see it also supports LinkedIn, it supports Flickr, it supports Picasa, both of which are photo editing, one from Yahoo, one from Google. It supports Blogger. It supports Gmail and will back up your Gmail account. It supports Google Calendar and backing up those items. A great place. One of those things that we always come across, especially in data recovery, is that your data doesn't really exist unless it's in one, if it's not in two or three places. If it's in one place, one error, one problem can make that data go away in a heartbeat. In this case, this is a great solution for backing up this sort of material in a format that you can get back in the event of something horrible going on. Now, you notice they don't tend to back up YouTube, but these are specifically social media. It will also back up Google Apps if you're using the Google Apps document editor, the spreadsheet, that sort of thing. It can back up all of those services. I think that's a really valuable service because, frankly, these things are going to, from time to time, let you down, and you're going to want to get that stuff back. So you want to grab that. So let me throw it out there because I know we're past time. Does anybody have any questions that I haven't covered here? Anything that I can address specifically for any of the viewers? Bueller? Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up then if nobody has any questions. I'm going to, again, suggest to you that if you have further questions, any interest in more detail on any of these topics, please contact me via email or stop by the office here, and we'll be happy to help you with it, whatever we can. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today. Apparently, I'm coming back next week to talk about cloud security and data security in the cloud.
Thanks so much, Rob. Yes, I was just going to mention that next week, everyone, the topic will be considering the cloud computing, and what you should know. So thanks so much, Rob. This was great, and we look forward to working with you next week.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.